and that is the rise of radical Islam, which he himself cannot even acknowledge. We welcome back to the program former Speaker of the House, probably the greatest historian that I personally know. Newt Gingrich is with us. How are you?
I'm doing fine, but I have to say this is the, if the radical Islamists had written his speech, they could not have done better at defending their cause than President Obama did today. It is an appalling speech and is typical of the pro-Islamist position which the Obama administration has now taken and is driving into the military, the intelligence community, the Homeland Security, the FBI. Every American should be advised that these comments today are just the tip of an iceberg of pro-radical Islamist bias which runs through this entire administration.
Why would the president want to go back to the Crusades? Why would he want to go back to the high and late Middle Ages, say 1095? Why would he go back, on the other hand, the Inquisition in the 12th century in France, when we're now in the 21st century and dealing with radical Islamists that he steadfast to even acknowledge?
Well, I think you just answered your own question. He cannot acknowledge that we are faced with genuine evil, that evil is a radical Islamist worldwide movement, that it has some members in the United States, it clearly has members in Britain and in France. It has over 10,000 fighters in Boko Haram in Nigeria. It has people in al-Shabaab in Somalia. I mean, just go country by country. And this president, and frankly, it's been a bipartisan problem. The Bush administration couldn't bring themselves to admit how big the war was and couldn't bring themselves to admit that radical Islamists are at the heart of this. This is not a problem with Buddhism. It's not a problem with Hinduism. It's not a problem, frankly, with modern Muslims who are willing to live side by side with others. It's certainly not a problem with Christians and Jews. The people who are doing the killing around the world today are radical Islamists, people who are determined to impose their faith on the rest of us or kill us in the process. And President Obama and the people around him, and you need to understand, it's not just the president. It is in the Defense Department. It is in the State Department. It is in Homeland Security. It is in the FBI. They have now managed to push into the system so many apologists and so many supporters of radical Islamism that this is an enormous national security problem for the United States. And the president today is just the tip of the iceberg of permanent apologies. So ISIS cuts off the head of 4 teenagers. Well, but Richard the Lionhearted did something bad in 1172. And ISIS burns to death a pilot. Well, Joan of Arc was burned during the wars between Britain and France. I mean, this kind of thing is insane.
He keeps going back to, perhaps the president, has not heard of countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Libya, Saudi Arabia, and the list goes on and on of the oppression of life for people under a Sharia law. But because over the weekend he made the statement that 99.9% of Muslims are good and want exactly what we want.
Which is just plain not true.
It's just not true. I mean, I wish it were true, but
you can't. You have to wonder, how could he have visited Saudi Arabia and not noticed?
That women can't drive. Women can't be seen in public without men that they're not related to. What part of that is he missing? And we have a journalist in Saudi Arabia that is in the middle of getting 1,000 lashes for daring to speak out against, quote, the kingdom.
Right. I mean, I thought it was very telling that this president could not go to Paris to stand up for the right of Charlie Hebdo to publish cartoons, but he could change his schedule to go to Saudi Arabia, a country which is a total dictatorship and which, as you point, which allows no Christian church, no Jewish synagogue, no Hindu temple. I mean, this is a place which has no religious liberty. And yet we are being lectured that we are supposed to somehow feel badly if we tell the truth. The Obama administration is dedicated to apologizing for radical Islamists, to appeasing radical Islamists, and frankly deciding with them. When you have the Muslim Brotherhood from Egypt meeting with the U.S. State Department, you have a direct attack on the current government of Egypt, which is, by the way, being very tough with the radicals. So you have a president who favors the radicals over the current government of Egypt, a president who has presided over the decay of Iraq, the decay of Syria, the collapse of Libya, the decay of Somalia, the decay of Yemen. President last fall claimed that Yemen was one of the great test cases.
Yeah.
Well, the rebels just took over the country. I mean, at what point do we Americans begin to realize we have an administration which is a genuine threat to our own national security?